Hi all, Randi here. Question. Who am I if I no longer have a sense of self? That's a big conundrum when we talk about the practices of mindfulness and open investigative mind, as well as allowing ourselves to, in meditation, to be absorbed, engulfed, and become part of and yet not become part of whatever realm that we get in contact with in our meditation practice. So who are we when we don't have a self? Scholars have contemplated on the topic of anatta. There are, of course, the oral handed over teachings that later on were written down. But I am careful with using these as sources of interpretation because in many ways they're not given specific answers, even though there are clues for further investigation. And the suttas are meant for contemplation, investigation, and hints in the direction and not the direct answer. So where do we get the answer? It comes from within in our meditation practice. And we will discover as we practice meditation and open investigation of what we will encounter as both going between what we call a diffuse mode, where we just see things pass by, arise and cease, arise and fall away, and then the focused mind that are most of the time focused in the frontal lobes where we meditate upon an object. Personally, I prefer the golden globe or the orb of light in the middle of my head, since I know that will amplify my hippocampus area, as well as creating the bridge to the past versions of who and what I have been inside this reality. Many have talked about past lives and the bridges between past lives, the interim. And of course, I have my memories of what that means and what that is. And all of that implies a sense of self. Wherever I look, wherever I see myself, there is a sense of self. But is it a self as an ego that clings on to specific belief systems, specific perceptions, and specific ideologies, as well as specific, I am this, so hence I perceive the world like that? No, not really. It's just this core essence of, I know this is who I am, as in, I know this is what all of these, it's called samkhara, all of these different elements that I'm composed of are here present in this situation. And there is a consciousness and awareness that observes that. So that's the best, and it sounds very wordy and very kind of as a mental construction. But really, when we go from different levels of who and what we are, there are different angles to interpret a sense of self. And instead of me relying on the teachings and say, oh, this is taught here and there, and they have come up with these answers, I would like to give my version of it and how I have perceived it in my own practice and how I experienced it in my meditation. First and foremost, I began my meditation practice with the double hand position, which I explain in the basic 4D energy work course, to amplify my heart field. And before that, I had worked with activating the chakras because I felt there were these, not necessarily chakras as they were taught in the Hindu Hindu interpretation, the Hindu ways, the guru teachings, or the Kala Chakra teachings, which were a bit of an epiphany to me, because in the guru teachings, what is left for us in the West is often portrayed as each chakra has this sound, this symbol, this color, this function. And of course, I looked into some of the esoteric teachings where different people had looked on the chakras energetically and saw that they were not just one color. So why this one color practice, or this kind of one symbol practice, or one type of animal practice, or one type of sound practice? And I got the answer in the color chakra, where I understood that when we work on these nodal points, they are technically nodal points between the subtle fields, between the skandhas, if you like. I know Buddhism doesn't teach that, but we must recall that the Buddha himself, the one that had got the insights and the knowledge of everything there is, he had also practiced with the gurus. So my best guess is, it's not said anywhere, this is my interpretation. He knew of the chakra system, he knew of the guru teachings, and he knew of this tradition. And that's why when we talk about Kala Chakra, that is kind of both Tibetan Buddhism, Hinduism, a little bit of this, a little bit of that merged together. But the important thing is that in that teachings, you understand that these chakras, these wheels of, or energy, vortices of energies that wheels around when they function in the right way, they are the bridges between the subtle fields that we have. And Buddhism tells us we have 5. They interpret it in a different way. I prefer to interpret it in a Western mindset, where yes, each one of these layers or fields are composed of different types of energies that are composed of different forms of elements. And these elements, they instigate different types of processes in the fields. So we have the biofield, the emotional field, the mental field, and then in the human realm, as we are part of in this reality field, we have what I call the 4th dimension, the 5th dimension. Other calls this the astral plane and the higher mental plane. So we have different interpretations of these layers. But from my own personal experiences, yes, we can go with the astral plane, which is a distortion plane that cloaks the original 4th dimension. And we can go with the manasic or the higher mental plane that cloaks the original 5th dimension. That's my personal experience. But we also know that our ideas and perceptions cloak reality. Once we come in contact with reality, with our perceptions and our belief systems, reality has a tendency to form and structure itself according to what we emit and send out. So in that way, we are to discover that reality in itself is fluctuations of energies, cycles of energies, different realms, different compositions, where it all comes to life when we observe it and put our attention upon it. That's the very most important thing, because when we talk about another and no self, that means that instead of having, and bear with me here because this is important, everyday humans, here in the West at least, I can't talk for people on other levels of the planet, but I'm born in Denmark, so this is the Danish Western interpretation of reality that of course goes with my cultural and indoctrinational institutional programs that I grew up with. That's the first step to let go of when we talk about the ego structure. So we have this perception of self as in, this is me, this is I, this is how I perceive the world, and I perceive it through the lenses of my interpretation of my body, through the lenses of my interpretation of my emotional spectrum, through my interpretation of what is out there, the different constructions and structural layers that I have engineered in my brain to, this is how I perceive reality. All of that is due to nature and nurture. So the ego structure, or the personality matrix, I like that word because it is a composite type of structure that is built up through both some of the things we have been born with, that's typically associated with karma, good or bad, and which means the different angles of what we are born with, our personality. No child is like a blank slate. It is not a tabula rasa. It is a person that comes out that then takes form according to the interaction with the primary caretakers. And here you can hear I'm a psychotherapist. So this comes in with my understanding of the ego as well. And for those of you who want to dive deeper into the emotional field and all of the layers of it, go to the Advanced Emotional Work course. that you can find for free on my whole Academy website, where I have put all of these ideas into course material. But here we're working with the perception of no self. So once we understand that the ego we build up is like a rigid type of construction that becomes crystallized. This ego perceives the world in one way, and then every day becomes the same. Reality stops being fluent, changeable, rise and fall, even though we do see the 4 seasons and every day, the night and day, and get up, and a little bit of differences here and there. But our foundational perception in mind and our foundational scheme or spectrum of emotions are solidified and crystallized in a specific behavioral pattern. These then goes in and crystallizes the chakras, the vortices that ties the different layers of our energy body via the meridian system into the peripheral nervous system, and into the central nervous system. The central nervous system goes with the brain and instructs the body what to do. The peripheral nervous system takes care of all the organs, the glands, and the electrochemical processes. And then we have the lymphatic, and we have the vascular system, as well as the lymph system. All of these are a part of the different fluids that the body is composed of. So all of this is an organism that's supposed to be in motion. It's supposed to transform and adapt energies. The cells are transforming and adapting all the time. The stomach is processing and adapting whatever it's put into it. Everything is supposed to be transformative and changeable. And yet we create an ego structure, which we see in many people, that this is I, this is how I am, this is how I perceive the world, and this is what the world is, because this is how I have constructed myself to be. And it is a self-construction, yes, as an interaction that arises from our contact with reality and other people, our experiences, and what we have been part of as part of our life. So when we begin the meditation practice, the first step is to silence the mind, because many of you will observe that your brain is always thinking. And interestingly enough, for me, I'm not thinking much. My brain is quite empty most of the time, which preserves the energy of my body because I'm not using it for idle chatter and needless thoughts. When I need to focus my mind, I can. When I need to absorb information from the ether, the different realms, I can. But most of the time, my brain is silent. When I look at things, I just look, I don't think, I just see, I just observe. I don't make conclusions. I don't kind of think, oh, this is this is that, this is how it is. I don't focus on it. I don't put my attention on it. I don't put my mind's energy and my eyes' energy and my ears' energy on whatever is going. I'm just letting it flush through me, as if I were permeable. I see it, I know what it is, but I don't need to pick it up and focus on it. I just have the diffuse mode on most of the time. I know what reality is because I have investigated it. And all of this knowledge of what this reality is there. But I can, if I choose, go in and pick up the rock and look at it and then really focus on what it is. Or I can just pick up and look at it and have the diffuse mode and then say, okay, this is just it. The colors are there or whatever's going on. This is beautiful or whatever. And then put it back and then let it go and not focus more on it. Same with the tree, whatever I experience. If you ask me 5 minutes after I have looked at something, if I recall it, most of the time I don't. My brain doesn't store information anymore. It just processes it and let it go. But if I do need to focus my mind, then I can. Then I can look in at the different experiences I have had. Because for me, as a person, the most important things is this wardrobe of experiences I can tap into. Not because I want to see who and what I am. The emotional content of it I have released a long time ago as I cleansed the chakras, undid the crystallization that took form in each life. And let me explain that a little bit because that's part of karma. When we get crystallized in a specific way of perceiving reality, we then stop being permeable and transformable. And then we begin to crystallize. And crystallizations is technically what is then taken with us when we die as part of our subtle fields. And that crystallization is a pattern of energy, a specific pattern of energy that perceives and utilizes energies of reality and perceiving reality in a specific way. As these crystallizations linger on in our fields that we bring from one state of existence into another, and I'm here just talking within the traditional understanding of things. I'm not talking about the extraterrestrial dimensions that goes from the fourth dimension and up. We're just talking about the three lower fields, the biofield, the emotional field, and the mental field. The crystallization there determines our rebirth. It determines which set of parents, because that energy configuration draws us, due to laws of energetic and genetic affinity, to that set of parents that can carry our energy system. When mom and dad are having sex, their fields merge, and in that merging is a composite, complex energy field from where our three fields can join. So that's for in the conception moment where our soul attached to the field of our parents that are merged in their process of creating another life form. The three fields of dad, the three fields of mom, and the three fields of us merge for a short period of time and then become the complete field that allows for a creation of a child. And that is important for that to happen. If there is no soul that wants to enter, it does not become a child. So it's as simple as that. Okay. So with that understanding, then we also understand that throughout our lifetime, we need to undo, unravel, clear, upgrade, develop, process, or let go of the different crystallization and patterns we have had from past lives. This is our karma. These energetic patterns we carry in the three lower fields from life to life. But that's not a self, that's not an ego, that's experiences. We carry the experiences of our existence between lives into another life where we then have this roadmap of experiences of existence that we bring along with us and how we interpreted these experiences of existence. That defines our quote-unquote personality when we are born, the string of experiences that we have brought with us. Unfortunately, now subconscious and not vividly represented in our mind, because the child needs to go through the different stages of taking the body in control, so to speak. The mind has to develop, the emotional field has to develop, the biofield has to develop, and all of these stages of mastering the body is the first step. Mastering the sense of self is the next. Who am I in contact with others? Then there's the emotional field that is already beginning, because the emotion and the body are connected. So that already begins from infancy, already in the womb of the mother, but also getting into after birth. And then the brain itself begins to arrange all of these new strings of experiences, the new patterns, and then building upon or on top of the older ones. And that's why we can have two siblings in the same family, the twins that are born at the same time, where parents are identical, as in this is who they are right now. Because if you have siblings that are born 2 or 3 years in between, well, the parents change, and hence the way that they mentor and bring up their children will then be different. But if we have twins that are born at the same time, they are different, even though they might be similarly in physicality. What they bring with them into this life, two different personalities, are definitely dissimilar, unless we have, which is very rare, that it's the same soul that divides itself into two physical forms. And that is a whole other story that I don't need to explain here. But there are some souls that chooses to go into the same type of body. So they have this kind of as twins, but they are dissimilar souls. So that's kind of a different experience. So this determines who and what we are. Karma are our existences, the patterns of these that we did not let go of before we chose to leave the previous life, or our bodies gave up and no longer could carry our potentials of existence. So with that understanding, we also now see that developing who and what we are as a sense of self begins with our birth. And I will stop this little podcast here and continue in the next one.